Hey there, it's Silver. This is Disgaea 7, Vows of the Virtueless. So yeah, I was pretty excited to get a hold of this because I'm a big fan of the Disgaea games. I love their sort of refuge and audacity ridiculousness, and I'm also just a fan of SRPGs in general. I love tactics RPGs, and I love that pretty much every different series has their own way of doing the whole tactics RPG thing, and Disgaea is definitely one of those. The way that Disgaea does things isn't really like how any other game does things, and I always appreciate that. So, as mentioned, this is an SRPG, and it, being in the Disgaea world, is of course self-contained. Just in case you didn't know, you don't have to play the previous 6 Disgaea games to understand what's happening in this one, because they're all within their own worlds, and also you won't understand anyway, because it's Disgaea, and that's how it works. The way it's going here is that you play a sort of disgraced swordsman who is allergic to empathy, literally. It actually causes him to cough up blood, and he's collecting various people along his journey to defeat this very badly named guy named Dimmador Opener, who is a sort of overlord of hell, more or less, and you're trying to be a worse demon than he is, but in your own way. And in the case of your main character, Fuji, worse basically just means you're actually a good person, because in terms of demons, that's actually a bad thing. As you go through the story, which is split into various chapters, you'll collect all kinds of other characters, as well as getting the ability to recruit your own characters that you can make, and you'll eventually end up with an army of various characters that you can deploy to different missions in order to actually succeed and defeat increasingly more difficult and ridiculous bosses and things while going through the story. In terms of the characters you can create, this actually has the most classes of any Disgaea game so far, with I believe over 40 different classes for you to choose from. You can create just a couple of basic ones at first, but eventually you'll gain the ability to create all sorts of various different kinds of monsters, as well as actual demons, like humans in this case, basically, classes, from swordsmen to mages to thieves and all sorts of things. And something I should mention, Disgaea is the kind of SRPG you should play if you like managing larger armies. Because in these games, your party is pretty large. Your average party that you're going to deploy on one battle is usually about 10 people. So this is not a small form game. These are usually relatively good-sized levels, and you have 10 total party members to choose from, generally speaking, on each level to actually make it work. And you're also encouraged to generally have more than 10 people anyway, because damage and MP usage and stuff is all persistent. So if you have a bunch of people that get knocked out and a bunch of people at half health at the end of the battle, when you go back to the hub area, all of those people will still be knocked out and damaged and stuff, and you have to use the Netherworld Hospital to actually heal everyone up, which can get pretty expensive, especially early on. It's not too difficult to make money later, but at first it is relatively expensive, and you might not always have enough to revive everyone, so sometimes it's nice to have several extra people just in case. Disgaea is known for the fact that these stats can get to completely ridiculous levels. Pretty much everyone knows that the maximum level in these games is 9,999, significantly higher than the usual 99 of most JRPGs. And, well, yeah, that's true, and your stats can get into the millions, but one thing that I think people don't always mention is that the game actually makes you earn those numbers, because it would be easy to just massively inflate the numbers and make it look powerful so that all your attacks did 8 billion damage or whatever, but you didn't actually feel powerful because you didn't really earn it. They just sort of did that automatically. But in Disgaea, that's not the case. You actually do have to put the work in to getting to those ridiculous numbers, so you'll start off doing just a couple hundred damage, and once you start to deal like 10, 20,000, it'll feel really, really good, and then eventually you'll start to have like damage numbers in the millions in terms of your combos and stuff, and it'll actually feel like you worked your way there rather than it just getting handed to you. This is one of the things that I like about how Disgaea does things. Its ridiculousness is not for no reason, and it usually has a good amount of context behind it and stuff, so that it actually feels like those stats matter rather than them just being huge numbers for the sake of it. But I also do have to mention that this does have a negative side, because this means that the Disgaea games tend to be relatively grindy. I don't think they're grindy to the point of like being a huge problem for everyone. Like, they're not so grindy that you have to farm in order to even succeed at all. They're not that difficult. They do get hard later on, but they're not so hard that you like have to just like mindlessly grind for an hour every now and then to get everyone back up or anything. It doesn't work like that, but it does mean that everything is on kind of a slow burn, right? Because you can get up to level 9,999. This means that everything you do has to take place in this system where these numbers can get this ridiculous, and since they don't start that ridiculous, it means that it can take a while to get there. I enjoy that sort of thing, but not everyone does, so it's the kind of thing I feel the need to mention. Basically, if you're going to play a Disgaea game, expect the game to be on a bit of a slow burn because of this. In addition to all of their normal stats that you would expect, like your attack and defense and intelligence, which is magic attack, and resistance, which is magic defense and speed and all that good stuff, you've also got weapon proficiencies. Everyone has different proficiencies graded in letters. This means you can equip most characters with most kinds of weapons, but depending on what their proficiencies are, they'll raise at different rates, and if you have someone with a good proficiency, they'll just be better with that weapon type, but also their skill with it will raise faster. As they do damage and use attacks with it and stuff, their proficiency will increase, and as it increases, they'll learn new skills. So every weapon type has a bunch of different skills attached to it that will get increasingly more ridiculous and more powerful and stuff as that character continues to level up their proficiency and learn more of them. In addition to whatever weapon skills that characters unlock, there will also be some skills based on their class or the kind of character they are that they unlock just by leveling themselves up. And of course, there are also various kinds of magic spells that some characters can learn, usually of increasing power for various elements, and some of them can be debuffs or buffs and things like that as well. So there's a lot of combat variety in the Disgaea games because every character is usually capable of a large number of different actions every turn. As characters kill enemies and stuff, they earn mana, and mana is not SP. SP is your MP, basically, what you use to cast spells and skills. Mana is actually a persistent resource that characters can spend outside of battle in the hub area to do various things. You can use them to learn abilities, and abilities are kind of what they sound like, really. They're basically demon passives. Everyone has different passives depending on their class or their character themselves, if they're a story-important character and not just like a character that you made. So basically everyone will come with one unique ability to them that is usually pretty effective. It's some sort of passive buff. It could be any number of things, but they're all really important to keep in consideration when you're in battle. But the story-based characters will also unlock new ones as they increase in power throughout the campaign. So at certain story moments, they will actually awaken some new powers and get better abilities, but you can also use mana to learn new ones. Every character has some that are unique to them they can learn and equip, as well as a bunch of more generic ones that everyone can learn and equip if they want, but you have a limit to the number that you can equip at once. They all cost a certain amount of points, and everyone has a certain number of points to actually spend on them at any given time, so you have to sort of come up with a loadout of different passives you want to use. But another use for mana, and even more important than that oftentimes, is the upgrading of your skills. So every skill, be it a spell or a actual attack skill, can be improved with mana. And of course the cost goes up each time you do it, but the thing about it is it doesn't only make it more powerful, it also makes it cost a lot more to cast. It costs like a lot of SP at first, and every time a character uses a skill, their proficiency with it will go up, and this will just make it stronger as well as make it cost less to cast. So basically you want to be careful not to use mana to increase the skill's power so much that it costs like 800, 1200 or more SP every single time they want to cast it, so they can only cast it like once per battle. Instead, you want to wait for them to improve their proficiency with it a little bit by using it repeatedly so that it costs less. That way the upgraded cost isn't as much necessarily, and you just slowly temper your character's skills, improving them in small increments so that they don't become so expensive they can't use them anymore. And for this reason, you can also de-upgrade a skill if you want to. If you accidentally made one so expensive they can't use it, you can actually take it down a rank and make it cheaper again if you need to. But the spells also have an extra type of upgrade, as well as the one that just makes them stronger but cost more, and that's the range upgrade. So every spell in this game can have its range upgraded with mana, and this just increases the range that it can be cast, but it also gives it more shapes that it can be cast in. So every spell at first only starts as just one square, so you can target one tile with it and cast there, but eventually you'll unlock 2 catty corner squares, or a group of 4 squares next to each other, or a line of 3 in a row, and things like that, and you unlock more and more advanced shapes that are larger and larger as you go along, so this allows you to target more and more enemies or friends if it's a buff or a healing spell or something, making the spell stronger by allowing it to actually use it in more situations and target more enemies and stuff with it. Although the single target spell will always be the one that does the most damage if you're going for a pure damage kind of idea. Spells that split it among more enemies, of course, will do less damage to each one, but still, if your stats are good, that allows you to actually take care of a lot more enemies at once, which can be very important because in the harder levels you are significantly outnumbered by a lot of enemies sometimes. Itemization is also, of course, very important. There are tons and tons of different items for you to find, from all the various weapon types to different kinds of consumables, and of course armor and accessories for every character. Every character can have 1 weapon and 3 different armors equipped. The armors can be anything from like actual defensive armor to like boots that allow them to move faster, or other accessories for like magic users. There are all kinds of different ones. and you can find them all over the place, and you can also find them in higher rarities that will have extra effects attached to them. And this is, of course, where the item world mechanic comes in. This is sort of famous in terms of Disgaea for a lot of people. Item world are a series of dungeons, basically a dungeon inside of an item, and you can go into any item you want, even a consumable. You can just get like a chocolate bar, and it'll have a dungeon inside of it. And when you go in an item world, you'll face all kinds of enemies on these more compact levels. They're usually a high level compared to what you would expect, but they have low stats compared to their level. So item worlds are a good place to earn money and experience if you need to, since you'll be defeating so many high-level enemies in comparison to your party. And as you defeat enemies and complete battle maps throughout an item, it will increase the item's level. And once you leave the item, either by completing all of the stages in it, or by using something called a Mr. Gensi exit, which is a red door that makes you escape the item, you will total up all the various levels that you got, and it will increase the item's level by that amount. And a higher item level just makes it better at whatever it does. So a higher level potion will restore more health, a higher level weapon will have more attack, and stuff like that. So any numbers, anything on it that can be increased, the item level will increase it. This allows you to fine-tune your items to a ridiculous degree and improve them in all sorts of different ways. You can also find these things called innocents, which are like passive bonuses attached to an item, and if you find an innocent in an item, you can blow it up and subdue it, and if you do that, it will be added to the item. And also you can find innocent towns where you can actually move around the innocents on an item to determine what sorts of passive effects it has. You can even get access to an innocent farm where you can breed and grow innocents to actually be more powerful or get specific ones you want. So this allows you to spend just an inordinate amount of time like micromanaging every single thing about your items if you want to, which is really cool. But this game also has a couple of new sort of headlining mechanics that weren't in any of the previous games. For one, you have Jumbification. As you take damage, you will fill this rage bar, and once it's full, you can Jumbificate one of your characters, which will make them huge. So huge that they don't actually fit on the battle map anymore, and instead sort of stand in the void next to it. Jumbo characters can choose, they can't use any of their skills, but they can just punch the board really hard. And when they do this, it does a ton of damage to everything in a really big square, so it allows you to take on a whole bunch of enemies at once, but of course you gotta be careful not to catch any of your allies in the radius, because Disgaea does have friendly fire, so don't crush your own party members. But this makes the character a huge threat because it allows them to attack anywhere, by the way. You're not limited by range. A Jumbo character can attack anywhere on the map at any time they want. And there are even some Jumbo treasure chests that can only be opened by being attacked by a Jumbo character. If you go to the edge of the map where a Jumbo character is, you can attack them with small characters, and they do take a normal amount of damage. You can even use skills and stuff on them, but it doesn't show the animation, it just does the damage total right off the bat. So you can still kill them this way, but they are quite powerful, and enemies can go Jumbo too, by the way, and sometimes multiple enemies at once can actually go Jumbo. And one other thing a Jumbo character can do is called a Gigaster attack, which is just basically punching another Jumbo character. So this allows you to, you know, if one of the enemies goes Jumbo and is like just totally destroying your side of the board, you can put one of your characters Jumbo and then punch them in the face and get rid of them that way, so that you don't have to sort of make your way across the entire battlefield in order to go stab them. I think personally this is a really cool addition, and it adds a lot of extra dynamic to the combat, because the fact that you and the enemies can do it, even bosses can do it and stuff, it's really cool. Also, every single character, including every type of monster unit, has its own Jumbility, which is something that it applies to the entire board as long as they're Jumbo. Like your main character Fuji, for instance, makes it to where you do a ton more damage if you attack an enemy from behind, but enemies will also do more damage to you if they attack you from behind while he's Jumbo, because these Jumbilities affect everyone. It only lasts about 3 turns, but it is very powerful while it's going, and you can also store multiple gauges worth if you keep getting damaged, and Jumbo multiple people in a row if you want to. There's also the new Hell mode, which is kind of like a limit break sort of idea. Basically, all of the main story characters have some sort of legendary artifact that they're equipped with. And they have a Hell gauge, which fills up different for every character. For your main character, it's simply by doing damage. For Higan, the lovely and very angry sort of sword trainer lady, hers goes up simply by getting attacked, so the more damage she takes, the faster it goes up. But once it's full, that character can enter Hell mode, and they'll equip themselves with their artifact, as well as getting a pretty drastic increase to all of their stats at once. And this usually lasts for about 3 turns, but it also gives them access to a skill that they can only use in Hell mode that involves using that artifact to do something. And if you do this, then it will end hell mode right there, but it is extremely powerful. They often also have kind of odd shapes to them, so they attack really big areas. Like, for instance, Higan's looks like a big trident in front of her, basically. It attacks a lot of people, and it's super strong. But yeah, so Hell Mode is something that you build up for each character a little bit differently, but is extremely potent whenever you decide to use it. And there are also some bosses that can do it against you. Some of the other new mechanics are about items. You can do an item improvement thing once you pass a bill for it. I should mention you have to pass bills in these games to unlock new mechanics. Each bill has a certain mana cost as well as a different chance of passing, and you can actually bribe the sumo wrestlers, who are the ones that vote on the bill, and you can bribe them with items to make them more likely to say yes to you. And if you're able to do that and get the bill passed, then you unlock something new. And one of the things you can unlock is an item improvement system that allows you to sell items for these points, and then use the points to improve your other items to fine-tune them even better, along with the item world system, and they're actually done by the same NPC. But one of the new things is an item reincarnation system. So these games have had a character reincarnation system for a while, where you can spend some mana to reincarnate a character, which will put them back to level 1, but will keep some of their stats intact and allow them to get stats faster, so by the time they get up to the same level they were before, they'll be even stronger. But now you can also reincarnate items, and an item can only be reincarnated if you've completed its item world all the way through. But once you've done that, you can choose the reincarnation button and turn it into something else. Usually you can turn it into the same item it currently is, but with better stats. You can also turn it into like the next tier up of that type of item with even better stats, or you can actually turn it into something completely different sometimes, which can get kind of ridiculous. You could get like a stick of gum and then reincarnate it into an axe. And the thing is, it keeps both of its items sort of capabilities. So if you do that, you'll be able to equip the axe like a weapon, but you'll also be able to eat it like a stick of gum to restore health. So that means you can get some really strange items this way, and overall allows you to just fine-tune your items even more than you previously could. And again, this is done by the same NPC as the item world, so it's clear they're all meant to sort of go together to give you some extra powerful stuff after a while. There's also a gacha system, which is interesting, but not like a mobile gacha game kind of thing. It's just like a little bonus system. When you get healed at the hospital, you'll get these points based on the amount that was restored. And you can spend the points to run a gacha, and the gacha has a bunch of different possible rewards you can get from it, like items and money and some other stuff like that. And once you get all of the listed rewards, you can get a completion reward, and then it will unlock the next tier up, which is a more expensive gacha that has even better items. So this is just a way to earn some extra powerful stuff occasionally if you want to. There's also the Wicked Enhancement system, which allows you to use these same points in order to craft these sort of potion-like effects that affect everyone on your team for one battle. So if you're having trouble with like a boss or something, you can make your entire team stronger in some way with one of these beforehand. There's also the new juice bar system, which I really like. So every time you complete a battle, you'll get some experience and mana that goes to your juice bar, and you can then just walk to the juice bar NPC and give this experience and mana to anyone you want to. You'll also get some essences for all the other stats, like attack and defense and all those, and you can give them to anyone to increase their stats permanently too. So this is like a system that allows you to increment your characters even further, and also it helps to avoid some of the grinding, because this means you can like power level some weaker characters just by using some of your stored up experience and juice bar on them and stuff like that, which is a pretty cool idea, I think. So yeah, like a billion different mechanics all coming together, and that's very standard for Disgaea, and even more so in this game. By the way, this does have the auto battle system from Disgaea 6, but it's been drastically improved because, for one, it never feels like you need to do it, and for two, it's limited by a resource. You actually need this, it's basically demon gasoline in order to do it, that you get from completing levels in other ways. So it's something that you can only do in a limited capacity rather than something that you're expected to do a lot of, which I do appreciate. Story-wise and character-wise, it's Disgaea. It's pretty much what you would expect. It's ridiculous and dumb in all the right ways. The voice acting is great. You can switch between English and Japanese, and if you go with English, then you'll recognize pretty much all of the voice actors. If you've ever played a JRPG or watched an anime of any kind, they are pretty much all your really solid voice actors that you've probably heard before, and they do a really good job here. They're really funny, they have really great performances and some really good delivery, and the whole thing is ridiculous and over the top and silly, and that's exactly what I want from a Disgaea Disgaea story. And of course, it also has those unexpected serious moments where like some backstory is revealed that's actually kind of dark and depressing and sort of comes out of nowhere, and then eventually you whiplash back into making like stupid jokes again. And again, that's exactly what I want out of Disgaea. Like, that's the sort of thing that I expect, and it does deliver in that regard to being a good story, I think, that has characters that are actually fun to learn about because, well, they're all very flawed and silly, and that's my favorite thing about Disgaea characters is usually that they appear kind of two-dimensional at first, like archetypes, almost anime-like, but they eventually become more than that the longer you play with them and learn about them, and they become pretty enjoyable to have as part of your party. But if you're expecting a super serious story, then that's not what you're going to get here. That's just not how Disgaea works. You know, this is not like a Final Fantasy Tactics level, extremely detailed socio-political story, and that's fine, because as much as I love the Final Fantasy Tactics story and its way of doing things, I also enjoy the refuge and audacity silliness that the Disgaea games have. I would say personally, Disgaea 7 is a huge upgrade on Disgaea 6. The 6th game was not extremely well received, to put it lightly, and it had a lot of flaws and a lot of strange ideas, and I feel that this game has far surpassed that and become something much, much better right out of the gate. In fact, I would say it might even be an upgrade on Disgaea 5, which I really, really liked. I think it's actually better than that because it has a bit more of a rounded set of mechanics and some more interesting characters. So this is definitely what I would call a return to form for Disgaea after a sort of rocky previous entry. This is a really solid SRPG that is going to be a real love letter to fans that have been with the series for a long time and want it to, you know, go back to how it used to be, but still with some new ideas and stuff. This is exactly that, and it does a very good job of it. There's a reason it's getting very good reviews right now. It's just a super good Disgaea game, and if you're at all a fan of the series, I highly recommend you check it out. If you're a fan of SRPGs in general, then check it out, and if you're not sure, but you enjoy JRPGs, for example, then there's probably a lot here for you to enjoy as well. So yeah, I've had a blast with it so far, and I'm going to continue to enjoy it for a long time, probably because these games take like 200 hours to actually do everything. That's just how Disgaea is. I'll put the link in the description below this video to the Steam store page so that you can go and check it out yourselves. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.